Before this video ends, you'll probably feel the urge to check your phone. Not because you're bored, not because you're distracted, and not because you chose to. Your brain has been trained. The average person will spend more than 17 years of their life looking at screens. 17 years. Enough time to master multiple skills, build a successful business, learn new languages, write several books, or completely transform a life, yet most people spend it one scroll at a time. Before this video ends, millions of people around the world will unlock their phones without knowing exactly why they picked them up. Not because they're lazy, not because they're weak, and not because they consciously decided to do it. They're doing it because their brains have been trained to do exactly that. But here's the disturbing part. Many of the digital products we use every day are designed around a single goal, capturing and holding human attention. There is a principle hidden inside nearly every major app, a principle so powerful that it can keep people engaged for hours without them realizing it. We'll come back to it in a moment, because before we understand how attention gets captured, we first need to understand what is actually being stolen. Have you ever picked up your phone to check a single notification only to look up 20 minutes later wondering where the time went? Almost everyone has experienced this. You unlock your device for one reason, then somehow find yourself watching videos, reading comments, checking messages, and scrolling through content you never intended to see. It feels harmless because it happens a few minutes at a time, but that's exactly why it's dangerous. Imagine someone stealing tiny pieces of your attention throughout the day. 3 minutes here, 5 minutes there, a few minutes before bed, another few minutes while waiting in line. Individually, those moments seem insignificant, yet over the course of a year, they add up to hundreds of hours. Entire weeks of your life quietly disappearing without ever feeling lost. The tragedy is that nobody notices attention disappearing in small amounts. If someone stole an entire year of your life overnight, you'd panic. But when it disappears a few minutes at a time, it feels normal. This brings us back to the principle hidden inside nearly every major app. To understand it, we need to talk briefly about dopamine. Most people think dopamine is the chemical of pleasure, but neuroscientists have discovered that dopamine is often more about anticipation than enjoyment. It's the feeling that something rewarding might happen soon, and the human brain is remarkably sensitive to uncertainty. Imagine a slot machine. If it rewarded you every 10th pull, it would quickly become predictable. But when rewards arrive randomly, people keep playing because the next pull might be the winner. The same principle appears throughout the digital world. Every time you refresh a feed, open an app, or swipe to the next video, your brain doesn't know what comes next. It could be boring or fascinating, useful or completely irrelevant. That uncertainty keeps people engaged far longer than logic would suggest. Psychologists call this variable reward. Most people simply call it scrolling. However, the most surprising part isn't what happens when you use your phone, it's what happens when you don't. Researchers at the University of Texas conducted an experiment involving smartphone users and asked participants to complete tests measuring memory, reasoning, and concentration. One group left their phones in another room, another kept their phones in a pocket or bag, a third group placed their phones face down on the table. The results surprised even the researchers. The people whose phones were in another room performed the best, while the people whose phones were visible performed the worst. Nobody was using their phone. Nobody was checking notifications. Nobody was scrolling. The device was simply sitting there. Researchers concluded that part of the brain remained occupied by the effort of not paying attention to it. Think about that for a moment. Your phone doesn't always need to interrupt you to distract you. Sometimes its mere presence is enough, and the damage doesn't end there. Studies suggest that after an interruption, the brain may need more than 20 minutes to fully regain focus. A notification lasts seconds, but its consequences can last far longer. Most people remember the interruption. They never notice the concentration that quietly disappeared afterward. This is where most people get the story wrong. They think their phone is the enemy. They think deleting a few apps will solve the problem. They think the battle exists inside the device. But what if the device is no longer the main issue? If every social media platform disappeared tomorrow, millions of people would still struggle to focus. The reason is simple. The battlefield has already moved. It's no longer on the screen. It's inside the mind. Years of constant stimulation have trained many brains to expect novelty every few seconds. This is why removing an app often fails to solve the problem. The habit survives even after the trigger disappears. The technology started the behavior, but eventually the behavior learns to survive on its own. The most dangerous habits are the ones that no longer need a trigger. And that realization changes everything. Your phone is not stealing your attention. It is teaching your brain what deserves attention. Every repeated behavior trains the mind. If you spend years practicing a skill, your brain adapts to support that skill. If you spend years lifting weights, your body adapts to support that habit. And if you spend years jumping between short bursts of stimulation, your brain adapts to that too. It becomes increasingly skilled at seeking novelty and increasingly uncomfortable with stillness. Think about the last time you stood in line, sat in a waiting room, or rode in an elevator. Did you simply wait, or did your hand automatically reach for your phone? For most of human history, boredom was unavoidable. Today, boredom is becoming rare. At first, that sounds like progress, but boredom served an important purpose. Many of your best ideas probably didn't appear while scrolling through content. They appeared during a walk, in the shower, or while staring out a window when your mind finally had room to wander. Creativity requires space. Reflection requires space. Self-awareness requires space. Yet every moment filled with stimulation is a moment that space disappears. And now we arrive at the most important part of the story. The biggest threat isn't social media. It isn't dopamine. It isn't even your phone. The real threat is that most people no longer notice what's happening. Imagine a prison where the walls are invisible. A prison so entertaining that nobody wants to leave. A prison filled with endless novelty, endless content, and endless stimulation. You wouldn't need guards or locks because it wouldn't feel like imprisonment. It would feel like enjoyment. If someone physically controlled your thoughts for 5 hours a day, you would call it control. But when algorithms influence what captures your attention, what occupies your mind, what makes you angry, what makes you fear, what makes you desire, and what consumes your mental energy, we often call it entertainment. The most effective forms of control don't feel like control, they feel like choice. And that's precisely what makes them so powerful. At this point, you might be wondering whether technology itself is the enemy. It isn't. The real danger is unconscious attention. The moment you become aware of these forces, something changes. You begin noticing the urge to check your phone. You notice how often your attention is pulled away. You notice how many decisions were never really decisions at all, but habits running on autopilot. Awareness creates a gap between impulse and action, and inside that gap, freedom begins. Perhaps the most important realization is this. Nobody wakes up and decides to waste 10 years of their life. It happens 5 minutes at a time. The greatest cost of distraction isn't lost time. It's the life that could have been built during that time, the book you never wrote, the skill you never mastered, the business you never started, and the person you could have become. Because attention becomes thoughts, thoughts become actions, actions become habits, habits become years, and years become a life. The scariest thing about losing your attention isn't that you become distracted. It's that eventually you stop noticing you've lost it. One day, your life will become the sum of whatever received your attention. Not what you intended to do, not what you dreamed about doing, and not what you promised yourself you would do, but what you actually paid attention to. Every achievement, every relationship, every skill, and every meaningful part of your existence begins with attention. Which means the most valuable thing you'll ever own isn't your money, your talent, or even your time. It's your attention. Time passes regardless. Attention decides what that time becomes. And at this very moment, thousands of companies are competing for it, not because it's valuable to them, but because it's valuable to you. So the next time you unlock your phone, pause for a moment and ask yourself a simple question. Who is choosing what I pay attention to right now? Because the apps on your phone are not competing with each other. They're competing with your future. The future isn't built by your intentions. It's built by what repeatedly earns your attention. And your future is being built by whatever holds your attention today. The moment you start choosing where your attention goes is the moment you start choosing who you become. If this video changed the way you think about attention, don't let it end here. Pick just one habit from this video and start today. Small changes, repeated consistently, can completely reshape the way your brain works over time. I'd love to know, which habit are you going to try first? Let me know in the comments. I read as many as I can. And if you enjoy videos that combine psychology, neuroscience, and practical ideas for living better, consider subscribing. New videos are released every week to help you think more clearly, focus more deeply, and build a better life one small step at a time. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.